Okay, continuing our discussion of APA citations. So earlier this week, you learned a lot of the citation basics of formatting and how authors are listed both in text and for your actual citation that's in your reference bibliography. So the next few days are going to focus on how do we create citations for books, articles, and websites, talking about variations of these that can sometimes trip students up as well. So we're going to start with books because it's one of the easiest citation formats, and it is typically very basic of who, what, when, where for how do you cite a book. So everything I'm going to teach you about this, I'm really using this APA Purdue OWL guide as a resource to show you what it is I want you to do. It's definitely going to be a reference for you to come back to. I will never, ever, at any point in this class, ask you to create a citation and not allow you to pull open this Purdue OWL style guide or pull open an APA style guide or any other online site if you're using like the actual APA website or something like that. You can always go back and look up how to create these citations. My goal for you at the end of this class is not to be able to create citations off the top of your head, although I would hope for things like basic book and article formatting and citations, you will be able to do that by the end of this class off the top of your head. But even now that I've been doing this for 15 years, been in academia between all of my student years and my career of creating citations, every now and then I got to go back and look things up, especially if it varies from the basic standard version at all. So never ever feel that anything I'm asking you to do is closed book. You can always pull open your APA style guide in whatever format you're using to look up how do I do this. That is my goal. It's for you to understand this style guide enough to be able to look at it and create a citation, not do so off the top of your head. So looking at books, if we scroll down, you got this menu over here on the left that gives you all the different sections of this style guide. And so we went through the general format, the basics and authors for in-text, as well as the basic and authors section for your reference list on Monday. Now we are looking at the book section. Books, like I said, are pretty easy because they have this very basic format of who created it, when was it created, what is it, so what's the title of the work, and then where was it created in terms of who is the publisher. So where in terms of a publishing house is it created. And so it's pretty simple. I also like this APA Purdue OWL style guide because it gives you the pieces of what it is you're putting in there, but then it also gives you an example of what this would look like if you were actually citing a real book. So with these videos, we're going to do a few examples of this. So let's pretend we are citing this book, Wildflowers of North Carolina. So you're getting a lot of the information up here at the top. You get the title is Wildflowers in North Carolina. You get your 3 authors, and remember how we're going to talk about author formatting. So a lot of times when you're working off citations like this, it's very easy to copy and paste things. One of the nice, lovely things of technology. So to save time, I am copying and pasting, and then I'm going to revise it so that it matches the formatting I need. So remember with authors, we do last name, first initial. We don't need these semicolons in between it. So remember, it's last name, first initial, comma in between, and then you're going to have a comma in between the last name and the first name, as well as in between each one. So W.S. Justice, C.R. Bell. And then remember with the citation for the reference list, we use the ampersand symbol, not an and. And then I'm going to take out and put an H. H, there we go. Also, one thing I'm going to notice, y'all probably can't see it, but it kind of has this highlight behind it from where I copy and pasted it over. I do want that to go away, so I'm going to take that off. One of the things that drives me nuts as a professor is if you're copying and pasting and you don't change the font to match the font you are using in your paper. So right now, using this source, we're going to change that to Calibri. There we go. And make it a little bit bigger so y'all can see better on the screen what I'm doing. So 3 authors separated by that ampersand, last name, first initials. Going back to the book, next thing that comes up, so you get your author, you then get your when. So remember how we talked about on Monday that authors and dates are always tied together. They are always, always, always going to be next to each other. And so this is true for in-text and for your reference citation. So author, next thing you're looking at is the date. So for the date of this one, you see that's copyright 2005. Students sometimes get confused where Primo or the library catalog will have that C, 2005. You don't need to take that. That C is just copyright, and this is a kind of a computer error where the bibliographic info has been copied by a computer into the system, and we haven't been able to go back and take out all of those C's. So if you're seeing a C next to a date, that is that copyright is what that means. You don't need to put that in the citation itself. Citations in dates in the citation do go in parentheses though. So we do parentheses, date, and then you follow it by a period. So throughout APA citations and even MLA and Chicago citations, the punctuation used is very important because it tells you what part of the section it is. That different pieces of punctuation have different purposes. A period normally ends a sentence, correct? This is sentence, it's complete, the end. That is what a period does. And so it serves the same function in between the different parts of your citation. So you get your author name and a period. Because we're using an initial here, you don't need to double period. You're never going to have two periods next to each other. So that period stands as the abbreviation period, but also the end of the section period. But after this parentheses, you are going to provide this period. So date, done, period. We're moving on to the title next. Wildflowers of North Carolina. So we're going to copy that, paste it, and I'm going to make it so it merges the formatting. So that way I am keeping things in the same font and size as the rest of my text. Now remember APA, we talked about rules for titles. APA has odd rules for titles that only the first word of a title and the first word of a subtitle are capitalized, as well as any proper noun. So wild is correctly capitalized. North Carolina is correctly capitalized because it is a proper noun. It's a specific name. Flowers and of should be lowercase. Another thing, remember with formatting of titles is what is italicized. So if we remember, book titles are italicized. So highlight that, put it in italics, and then we're going to wrap this off with a period so that title, period, done. So authors, period, book date, period, title, period, complete. So we are finished with those sections. Next piece that comes, so you get the title of the work, didn't have a subtitle, so that's okay. We don't need to include that. Publisher name. This you do have to scroll down for. So your publisher name when you're looking at catalog records is not going to be up here at the top. It's going to be down here in this details section, and so you're looking for this publisher section. So it's saying it's coming out of Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina Press. And so this University of North Carolina Press is the name of the publishing company. And so we're going to copy that and paste it over, and I'm going to change my pasting to make sure it's in the same thing. It's not going to be in italics, and then a period after that because it is the end of the citation. Now, some of y'all may have been trained that you also need to provide the city and the state with the publishers for APA or MLA. You no longer have to do that. This is a difference between 6th and 7th edition APA. 7th edition no longer requires the city and state. So where you're seeing, you're getting that information that the University of North Carolina Press comes out of Chapel Hill. So you do not need to include Chapel Hill, North Carolina as part of the citation anymore. You just need to include the publishing house. Simplifies things quite a bit. Students tend to like this once they move into it. So that's your complete citation. You got your who, your when, your what, and where it was created. The only thing you need to do before you're finished is add a hanging indent. And you got a few ways you can add a hanging indent. So if you remember from Monday, a hanging indent is the opposite of how you indent a paragraph. It's where if the citation goes beyond one line, that it runs onto a second or a third or a fourth line, you need to indent the second and third and fourth line over 1/2 inch or 1 tab. So if you're using the tab button on your keyboard, you got a few ways you can do this. You have options up here in Word within references on how to insert citations and set up that hanging indent. You have other ways that you could do it within the paragraph section of indenting things. I do a different option. I go to the beginning of the second line and press enter. And so, like, you're entering to add a new line. What that does is it breaks up the line. So before, if I had taken out the word flat wild before, it would have taken back up that north. It's kind of like a string that goes all the way across, and when it got to the end, it kind of started re-over going down at the bottom again. By hitting enter, it breaks up that string. So now these are like two separate strings. That then allows me to press tab once, and so that pushes over that second line. And so you get this hanging indent, which is going to make this author's name stand out once we have a bibliography. That is how I do it. It's how I've learned from years. If you want to go through and look at that references or look at those paragraph formatting tools, fine, if that's how you like to do it. This is kind of a preference. I don't care how you get the hanging indent in there. I just want it in there, okay? Okay, coming back for a few more examples. Let's look at this one, Early Flowers and Angiosperm Evolution by Elise Frillis, Peter Crane, and Kaj Peterson. Okay, so remember what we pull first is author's name. So to be simple, I'm going to copy and paste this, and then I'm going to have to change the font. Do you want it not to be in 26, 116? There we go. And just making Calibri, so it's all in the same thing. Okay. How do I have this in different color? Interesting. Sorry, I got distracted. So for this one, we're going to have to go through and edit. So we're going to have to copy, paste, revise. So that was, Marie. So Fries is the last name, E.M, comma, Crane. So we're then changing the comma. And remember, we do not use and the word, we use and the ampersand. And Peterson, comma, K.R. Had to remember what his name was. Okay, so you're getting your three authors, last name, comma, first initials, and ampersand in between them. We are then looking on this for what is the book. So you got what is the rest of this info. You got two ways you can do that. You could pull up the cover and actually look at the PDF of the book, or you could look at this book details menu over here on the right for this ebook page. So we can see this one is August 8th, 2011. There's not a different date for the EPUB, so they came out at the same time. With books, you do not have to provide a month and day. You just need to provide that year. So 2011, put that in parentheses, period, after it, because we are complete. That is the whole title. All right, Early Flower. And so then we're going to copy and paste this book title into not my Facebook page, but put it in the same thing. All right, so this is one, though, that we are going to have to change the capitalization because flower is not the first word or proper noun. Neither is angiosperm or evolution. So those are all regular nouns, regular verbs, and descriptions. They are not proper names. They're not the first word in the title, so we do not need them to be in capitalized. You do need to put the whole thing in italics, so do you remember that? And then we remember what comes next is the publisher house. And so that you are going to get over here, Cambridge University Press. So we're looking in this book details section, listed as publisher. Not italics, thank you. Period at the end, because that's the end of the publishing info and at the end of the citation. Go back, press enter, press tab, get your hanging indent in there, and then you have a complete citation. So pretty simple on books. So author, date, title of the books, publishing house is what you're looking for with this. Neither of these books would you have to include a how. So even for this one where you're reading it as an ebook, there are print versions of this book. There are multiple places and platforms you could get access to this ebook. So you don't need that to get back here. This is not something that is uniquely only printed on this one website on the internet. It is a book that has been printed by a publishing house. So that's the information you need. You do not need a URL. You do not need a URL for this other book on wildflowers, because that, even though we were getting the information from the catalog record, I'm not making you come to the library to get this book on wildflowers. You would not need to give the URL for that catalog record. Books, you're never going to need a URL for a book. You can pretty safely say, I don't need that information. All right, some other examples. So coming back to our basic format for books. So most students kind of stop here with this basic format. That's the most common version of a book they're seeing, is that it has one or multiple authors, but author, title, date, title, publisher, house. You do with academic books get variations of that, and this is when students start tripping up a little bit. And so we're going to talk about how you do edited books and editors and translations in this next video.